Sam Altman, the CEO of Openai and unofficial high priest of the AI cult, just randomly admitted that, yeah, this might all be a bubble. He told reporters, "When bubbles happen, smart people get overexcited about a kernel of truth," which is basically the billionaire way of saying everyone's lost their minds, but like, in a thoughtful way. He even compared it to the dot-com bubble, that fun time when the NASDAQ lost almost 80% of its value because it turned out most internet companies were just PowerPoints with mascots. And honestly, he might be right. The US stock market has almost doubled in 5 years, mostly because 10 giant companies promised AI would change literally everything. Altman's raised billions and is already talking about spending trillions on data centers, which is a totally normal thing to say if you're planning to buy a small moon. So here's the real question. If this is a bubble, what did we actually buy? This is where things get weird. Most of the headlines you see about the AI boom aren't about how much value AI has created. They're just about how much the price of a few companies' stocks have gone up, which is kind of like judging the quality of a restaurant by how expensive their forks are. Here's the catch. When a company's market value jumps by hundreds of billions, it doesn't mean that much money magically appeared. It just means the last person to buy the stock paid more than the person before them. It's like if a single banana sells for $10, that doesn't mean all the bananas on Earth are suddenly worth $10. It just means one very confused person is about to have an expensive smoothie. So, if we actually want to know whether this is a bubble, we need to stop looking at stock charts and start counting what's real. The money, the chips, the electricity, the people. Because if you burn through trillions and all you get is a slightly faster email writer, that's not a revolution. That's just really expensive spell check with a PR team. All right, let's talk about what this bubble is actually made of, because it's not hopes and dreams. It's metal and electricity, and mostly invoices. Just 4 companies, Amazon, Meta, Google, and Microsoft, spent about $344 billion on AI infrastructure in 2024 alone. That's more than 1% of the entire GDP of the United States, which is wild considering most of us can't even get autocorrect to spell our own names right. And that's just the public numbers. Openai, the company at the center of all this, isn't public, so we don't get to see their books. But they raised $40 billion, then lined up another $6 billion secondary share sale, and Altman casually mentioned he expects to spend trillions on data centers in the not very distant future. China's state-owned companies have reportedly spent another $500 billion on their own AI build-out, and based on global chip sales from Nvidia and AMD, the rest of the world has probably dropped about the same. So altogether, we're already past the $1 trillion mark just on the hardware alone, before even counting energy, staff, or, right now, data centers already eat about 1.5% of the world's total electricity, and according to the International Energy Agency, that number could double by 2030 if AI growth keeps going like this. Which is a fun way of saying we might run out of electricity because your chatbot needed to write a limerick about avocados. The United States grid is especially not ready for this. Most of it was built in the 1960s and 70s, and it's running with just 15% reserve capacity. Meanwhile, China, who built their grid way more recently, runs at 100% reserve, meaning they can casually plug in another few million GPUs without blacking out an entire region. And this strain is already showing up on our bills. US electricity prices have nearly doubled in the past 3 years, partly thanks to this AI build-out. That hits every industry, not just tech. Which means when your grocery bill goes up, part of that might actually be your neighbor asking an LLM to write their wedding vows. The Goldman Sachs analysts say new large-scale power capacity in key U.S. markets won't come online until 2028, and data center vacancy rates are already below 3%. So the AI boom is slamming into a literal wall. There's nowhere left to plug it all in. A new Massachusetts Institute of Technology report called The Gen AI Divide found that 95% of companies using generative AI got zero return on investment. Not a bit disappointing, zero. The tools look impressive in demos, but the moment you drop them into real workflows, they fall apart like IKEA furniture in a hurricane. The few companies that actually see results aren't trying to automate their whole business. They just pick one boring but valuable task, like back-office paperwork, and quietly make it faster. Everyone else is out here building half-baked co-pilots for everything and wondering why nothing works. And it's not just bad planning. The tech itself keeps wobbling. Meteor researchers found that large language models do fine on short tasks, but completely fall apart on long ones. Even coding, supposedly AI's best use case, ends up spitting out more bugs and security holes, so teams are literally hiring AI code janitors. Which is hilarious, because that was supposed to be the job the AI was taking. And then there's the stability problem. These platforms change so fast, they keep breaking their own ecosystem. When OpenAI pushed out GPT-5, it quietly broke support for custom GPTs and wrecked tons of developers' tools overnight. Imagine if Python just deleted half its standard library one morning. That's what people are trying to build on right now. So not only is AI failing to produce returns, half the time it can't even stay upright long enough to try. If the tech isn't ready, why are companies still throwing billions at it? Simple. No one wants to be the one who missed the future. Every big company watched their competitors slap AI powered on something and suddenly get a stock bump, so they all panicked and did the same. Budgets were rewritten, teams were rebranded, and CEOs started saying AI strategy in every sentence just to keep investors calm. It's less about results and more about not looking like the one dinosaur at the robot party. And this isn't new. The same thing happened during the dot-com bubble. Companies were adding .com to their names and instantly doubling their valuation. Sam Altman described it perfectly. This is a bubble built around a kernel of truth. The internet was real, but most .com companies weren't. AI is real, but most of today's AI companies probably aren't either. And while all this hype was building, workers, especially juniors, got convinced they couldn't get hired because AI took all the jobs, when in reality, hiring was crashing because the post-COVID-19 pandemic hiring bubble finally popped. It wasn't robots replacing them. It was just companies realizing they accidentally hired 5 front-end teams during lockdown. So now, you've got this weird mix of FOMO and ego pushing everyone to keep spending, even as the returns flatline, which is basically how every bubble works. It's not logic holding it up. It's pride. In places like Silicon Valley, investors don't actually need working products to pour in money. Just a good story. And right now, we're building the future with AI is basically the cheat code for fundraising. Coastal VCs are calling this the biggest private tech bubble ever, which is impressive considering these are the same people who once funded a $400 million juicer. Private markets also let the bubble grow faster because there's no daily stock price to expose how shaky things are. A company can raise billions, burn through it, and as long as the next round comes in at a higher valuation, everyone pretends it's going great. Meanwhile, most of the stock market's AI optimism is concentrated in about 10 megacap firms like Nvidia, Microsoft, Amazon, and Meta. They've tied up so much capital in AI that even Goldman Sachs expects spending to slow soon. And when it does, the hype driving their stock prices probably goes with it. Bubbles don't wipe out everything. Most of it pops, sure, but a few pieces survive and become the foundation for the next wave. After the dot-com bubble, thousands of startups vanished, but Google, Amazon, and eBay crawled out of the rubble and built the internet we use today. The same thing will happen here. Most of the flashy AI startups will disappear, and the survivors will be the boring ones quietly building chips, data centers, and power grids. So yeah, the AI bubble will pop, but the tech won't die. It'll just get quieter and more useful. Anyway, if you liked this video, do the whole YouTube ritual. Like, share, and subscribe so the algorithm thinks I'm useful. But hey, maybe it's time you figured out how to control your money. That's why I made this simple finance budgeting template. Just plug in your income and expenses, and it shows you exactly where your money's going. No confusing apps, no subscriptions, just one clean sheet to finally get your finances together. And here's the best part. It's free. Or if you want to support us, you can pay whatever you want. Start building your first real budget today. Links below.